I learned about life through books. I learned about possibilities through books. And that's what you want children to have. Plus, vocabulary. There is so much research to show, it's astounding that even if a child is exposed to one book, and if you compare that child to someone who has not been exposed to any books, in just that delta, there are some 300,000 words.
Hey everyone! We are talking about raising readers today, and I am very, very excited to share our guest because she's a mom, she's a grandmom, she is an author, philanthropist. She's really really a woman that I really, really look up to, and I'm sure a lot of you guys really look up to her. And I'm so glad that she's chatting exclusively with us today. Hey Rohini!
Namaste. I think it's my first Instagram live thing.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited that it is with Kickstop Press.
Thank you so much for having me.
Likewise, it is an absolute pleasure. I'm a little nervous, so just handle it. I've never interviewed somebody I admire, except Andre Agassi. I love him. Which
No, you've interviewed a lot of good people. I've seen whom you've interviewed. So that's not, you say that to everyone.
No. But really, it is an absolute honor, and I'm very, very excited. How do you feel? Like, is it very common that people tell you this, that they're overwhelmed or they're a little intimidated if they're interviewing you?
Not in the least, because I'm not at all intimidating, unless I really want to be.
But just that you are incredible. You've achieved so much. You're doing some incredible work. I mean, it's the the work that you do can be intimidating to people, right?
I hope not. I hope we can discover that it's not at all intimidating, and circumstances do matter. But if so many people have achieved so much, we just have to keep at things. That's all.
Right. You're a writer, you're an author, philanthropist, founder, person of the Arangam Foundation, of a non-profit that focuses on water and sanitation issues.
Nandan and I, for the first time working together, co-founded Extra Foundation 5 years ago. So that's become a big part of our lives now. It's to ensure access to 200 million children of India for learning.
Amazing. At the outset, how did you come up with the idea of the book, and why children?
So this is my latest book. It's called A Hungry Little Sky Monster. And it's, of course, it's my 13th or 14th book for children. All the others were done for Pratham books.
Yeah.
This is my first one with Juggernaut, and I'm very excited because it's my first commercial book. And of course, it was inspired, like so many other children's books, by a little person, my grandson. And for him and me, we used to always look at the moon. So I really wanted to create a new fable for little children about why the moon waxes and wanes. And I had great fun doing it with my marvelous editor and publisher, Chiki Sarkar, who helped a lot to improve it. It was great fun. And mainly, I want little children in India especially, but around the world, to love the story.
You've always been very vocal about getting kids to read and, setting those practices up early. What do you think are the first few foundation steps that one should look at in getting kids to really, really read?
So there are many things, and they're all common sense. But the biggest and most important one is start early. Okay, so parents, when you are pregnant, when the mother is pregnant, that's a great time to start, because at that time you don't have to change nappies yet. So you have time to think of other things. Go to a bookstore, before the pandemic or after the pandemic, and find books that you love. Colorful books, little books, story books. Bring them home and read them while your baby is still in the womb. And then continue to introduce books as early as possible. It is as simple as that, because you will love those books and then your child will love them too. No doubt in my mind.
What would you recommend to parents, and we get this really often on Kickstop, is that I'm not a reader, but I want my child to read. How do you inculcate that? Like, what would you recommend?
First of all, I'd say congratulations. Even though you're not a reader, you want your child to read. So you have already appreciated the importance of reading, and the lot of research which shows the impact good reading can have on a child's future. So you're already done something right. Now, just of course, get books. The first thing is find good books, like your site, like your club. There are many others as well, which are really encouraging young parents. So join some of these things, find out what are the good books that children should read, buy them if you can. If not, there are many free resources available like Storyweaver and a few others. Go to those, doesn't matter. There is no obstacle left now for Indian parents to get books for children. They are also free and they're also available. So if you can buy them, please buy them. Other authors will say, what is she saying? So please buy them if you can afford them. But otherwise, there are free resources. So get books. That's how you will. And secondly and thirdly, do not be anxious about this. This is not a performance test for parents. Oh, is your child a reader? Okay? Because if you are in performance anxiety, you will not be able to have a joyful engagement with books with the child. So don't be anxious. Most children will read if you present them with good books. Some won't, but they may do it later. Some may suddenly catch up when they're 6 or 8. So don't be anxious. It's a joyful exercise. We have to democratize the joy of reading. It's not an exam. So get books, read with them. And my last advice is to sustain the habit and the magic. Get your child to gift a book every year.
Yeah.
The child herself or himself should gift forward a book. Then you become part of making the magic.
No, which is so integral that you say that, because I think we're such hoarders that we want to constantly hoard, and we keep getting more and more and more. And I think we somewhere forget that, just like what you said, right? The magic of giving can start so small. Tell me, when you were raising your kids, Rohini, there were very few distractions. How has that changed between now when you see your 4-year-old grandchild?
Yeah, no, all my sympathy goes out to young parents, okay? We had it easier, and I admire you for what you all are doing, especially in 2020, where you have to be some super circus ringmasters or something. So first of all, hats off to all young parents who are juggling 100 things, especially this year. Secondly, yes, our children didn't have screens. We had TV, which was also, remember, every generation has to deal with a new technology which they think is the end of the world, but it never is the end of the world. So right now people are worried about children's obsessions with screens and how much screen time you should allow. So for parents who are anxious, I would say, of course, you all have to have your own rules on screen time. But remember, if you have already introduced your children to physical books, then some new and good research is showing that to sustain a good reading habit, it doesn't matter if they're continuing the reading on a screen. Just make sure it's not mindless stuff, that they can read good books on a screen. Keep some physical books for sure, and some stories on screen is fine. Once they have learned how to read, to inculcate and sustain the habit, screens are okay. So again, don't be over anxious. We used to say that about television too.
But Rohini, tell me, we've spoken about how to get our kids to read, screens, no screens, all of that. In hindsight, when your kids are older and now that you're raising your grandchild, tell me the why of reading and the importance of reading that you think will play out for our children.
Yeah. Ooh, how much time do you have? Okay. Look, I spent my childhood in the pages of books, okay? They transported me to all kinds of adventures, I learned about life through books. I learned about possibilities through books. And that's what you want children to have. Plus vocabulary. There is so much research to show, it's astounding that even if a child is exposed to one book, and if you compare that child to someone who has not been exposed to any books, in just that delta, there are some 300,000 words. So just so that you can have a better vocabulary, a better understanding of your world, and are able to make better choices. Because as you know, Manasi, life is not black and white. Okay? Life is a million delicious shades of gray. And to be books allow you to understand those nuances and occupy them, so you become a thinking adult when you grow. So books are very important, stories are very important. Letting your imagination fly is extraordinarily important for children to retain their curiosity and their creativity later in life.
You said that you were an extremely, you were a voracious reader. Have you continued to find the time to read even now when you're doing so many things? Because that's the first thing that most parents seem to drop. We ask them, what are you reading? And she's like, that I've been only reading a children's book, and the rest of my reading has dropped. Did that happen with you? And how do you continue to juggle between your reading and your work and all the other roles that you play?
No, I love reading too much to let anything else come in the way. So I will compromise something. So we will, in my family, everyone reads. Of course, the children read only on the screen now, and tinier screens. It makes me wonder how they do it. But we all read, and we make time in the day to read. So usually at night, or sometimes around lunch, or just sometime that you carve out a space, because we love to read, and we know that we have to continue our learning journey no matter how old we get, and that is best done with books. So no, we make time no matter what to read, and I read several books simultaneously.
So you read multiple books at the same time? I thought I was the only
Yeah.
crazy one. Like and people ask me, how do you manage to read 2 or 3 books at a time? And I said, I don't know, but it just works well because I can't be in the same frame of mind each time that I'm reading. And especially because I read a lot of non-fiction, I get this question very often. So it's
Yes.
quite interesting that you say that. Rohini, tell me 3 books that shaped you as an individual that you are today.
Well, when I was very young, no matter how it seems today, when we were very young, the Enid Blyton book shaped us a lot. And now when we look at her politics and we say, oh, was she a racist, etc., we didn't know that when we were children. And the reason I mention her is because her characters, the children, seem to have a lot of agency in their lives. They could do things that seemed adult and which we couldn't do, like solve mysteries.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of a child's agency influenced me when I read the typical books of Enid Blyton. I think To Kill a Mockingbird when I was young really embedded in me questions about justice, that to this day I go back to that book often and really enjoy it equally each time. Very strangely, when I was, and of course we read all the same stuff: Roald Dahl, Winnie the Pooh, William, Nancy Drew, just everything that was very common. Louisa May Alcott, everything. I remember when I was very tiny, I read a Hans Christian Andersen book called The Little Match Girl, and I cried for days because it was such a pathetic
Yeah.
story. But since I still remember it, something must have happened. And very strangely, when I was 12, I went through some kind of spiritual phase, and I started, believe it or not, memorizing some verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and started to go deeper into philosophical questions. And then it was very nice to meet Tolkien after that. So many books, it's impossible for me to. I even read Khalil Gibran because I enjoyed The Prophet and so many other things so much. So a million kinds of books. I don't like to be pinned down to 2 or 3. I gave you my earlier influences, and then of course as you grow you read so many other things. A lot of autobiographies start to come in by the time you're 14, 15. So too many to name.
Right. What are you reading right now?
I just finished reading 2 lovely books by autobiographies by Ishar, and she just passed away, but Ahluwalia, and what a trailblazer, a wonderful economist, a trailblazer. She just passed away and managed to finish her book even when she had cancer. It was so wonderful, and we miss her so much. I just read our feminist theorist Devaki Jain's book. Right now I'm reading Vikram Sampath's book on Savarkar. And I'm also reading Pranay Lal's book called Indica on the national. These are the things I'm reading. And on the side, I'm waiting to read the Ferrante books, which I've been saving for a long time, and they're on my Kindle, beckoning me every minute.
It's interesting that you mentioned so many Indian authors, right? And what I feel missing, at least when my kids were a little younger, and that was perhaps the reason that why I started the book club at Kids Talk Kids, because I always felt And our kids are not growing up with toast with mushrooms and in the woods and all of that. So I always feel that um, it's so important for them to read Indian authors so they get they get a feel of about our culture, about the way we're growing up, about the puddles and some of the roads and the autos and all of that. What would you like to change or better about Indian publishing and Indian authors?
Well, first of all, the fantastic news is that there's so much more Indian writing. It's falling out of our ears.
Yeah.
And so much talent and so much diversity of talent. Books on things that were never written about before, of all kinds, whether it is political issues, economic issues, social issues, you name it, or just fantasy, magic, every genre is thriving, right? So that is really marvelous for young readers today. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is for Indian publishing. So that's a marvelous news about Indian publishing. We do wish there was more. See, we set up Pratham Books in 2004 for children to sort of have an impact on the whole children's publishing industry. And today we are seeing dramatic innovation. But I wish adult publishers or children's publishers would be more innovative in their distribution networks. We need to find new ways to crack the distribution model. Others, how are we going to improve access and price? And they follow on each other. If you improve distribution, more people will buy books, hopefully, and then you can produce them at a cheaper price, so more people will buy them. So it's a positive cycle. So that's the thing. There are some wonderful examples in America, especially First Book USA, where they've created a platform where many publishers join in to give discounted books for especially impoverished children, and you could do that for adults as well. So innovation is the need of the hour.
Right. Rohini, I can't obviously leave without asking you a very, because you've written so many books. Has motherhood changed you as a writer in any way?
Motherhood was a long time ago, but yes, of course, motherhood always changes you because it's no longer only about you. And motherhood changes a lot, as we all know, and I don't need to tell you that. But grandmotherhood, now that's more fun, okay, to talk about. And my little 4-year-old grandson is not just the apple, but the whole fruit salad of my eye. And, watching him think, literally, because how children think almost, you can hear them think. So watching his mental processes and the questions he asks are really very inspirational for me. And I do that with all children. I always observe what are children asking. And that's what inspires me a little, and as I'm sure it does all authors.
Right. Somebody, when we posted that we're going to be chatting with you, somebody asked this question. I have a story, but I don't know if I have the audience. So as an author, how do you decide that this story needs to be told?
Your heart will tell you this is a story that needs to be told. You're going to write a story which needs to be told. You're not going to write a story which doesn't need to be told. So your story is the story which needs to be told. And luckily for you, new authors today, there are so many publishers, so many platforms. Don't be afraid even to self-publish, because through social media, you just don't know who will like what. And remember, diversity in our country is our great strength, because there's a long tail. Different people like different things. Tell your story in the most authentic voice you can find and bank on that.
I want to ask you this. When you shared with people about your latest book, any anecdotal incidents or comments that children gave you about the book?
So the Hungry Little Sky Monster is the latest, but it's not yet been out yet. It just got launched on November 14th. So that feedback will come, but the children who have read it have loved it and are looking for the sky monster in the clouds. So let's see if they find one. It's too early for that, but the earlier books, the Sringeri Srinivas series that I did, starting with Annual Haircut Day, for some reason the character Sringeri Srinivas really caught on. And sometimes I heard a mother say that my son said he's not going to cut his hair at all, and she asked why, and he said because I'm Klingeli Srinivas, so I can't cut, I'd have to have long hair. So things like that. And a child, once I gave her a book of mine, and she asked me, and I was just giving it to her, and she asked me, and she came from a very low economic background, and she said, do I have to return this? Somehow it was heartbreaking that she couldn't even think that she could actually own a book. So those are the kind of things that stay with you.
You know, parents today, Rohini, feel that their kids have the abundance of everything. How do you inculcate the value of giving or the value of a materialistic thing in your child? That it's you need to take care of what you have, because today I feel kids have a lot of paradox of choice. Parents have that as well, which causes a lot of problems. So how did you manage to go about doing that?
So there are some things that I believe in giving in abundance, right? And books is one of them. So don't hold back on giving books. But at the same time, remember, especially young children need to go back to the same book again and again. So even if you give a child 50 books, don't worry if out of those 50 he reads only 200 times, okay? Because that's how they absolutely internalize some things. Right. So just if you give 500 books, it won't do the trick. But books must be in abundance as long as the child is finding joy in them. But other things, see, if we have over-satiated desires, then we forget to explore. Right? We forget to explore. So I know moms who do very ingenious things. So say, okay, you want the next toy, then you have to give some old toys away. Or we have to give some things back. In any case, nobody has so much space to have a whole go down full of things. So, so make these trade-offs in a creative way, or ask your child what he or she wants to do. Because how many toys can you keep? What would you like to do with the other ones? And they'll come up with magical answers. Because remember, if we have too much, then we find it much harder to appreciate what we have. So we have to find that balance. We have to find that balance. And sometimes children can help you find that creative balance themselves.
Right.
But use it as an opportunity to spread. Use it as an opportunity to share. And the joy that comes back to you from that will reinforce your strategy.
How do we pick the right books for their age? Is it okay to get books ahead of their age?
Yeah, of course it's okay to get books ahead of your age. To all parents, I would say, of course not for 8 months old, but just be a little aware to make sure that your child is actually able to read properly. To read text properly is to be able to decode it properly, right? So help them to become a little fluent in reading. Then actually it doesn't matter what books you give them, because if you can read a paragraph really fluently in any language, then you can decode more and more complex stories, right? So my 4-year-old now can read pretty much fairly, almost like those tiny chapter books, because he has understood how to decode language. So be with them till that stage, exposing them to the books they like. Don't worry what book it is. Once they are independent readers, they will be driving what they should read. And you should quickly get to that stage if you can. Luckily for you, there's so much choice and diversity. Remember, one child may hate reading the kind of books I write and may love reading the kind of books some other author likes. Some children may prefer manga comics. It doesn't matter. Get them to appreciate language and decode, make meaning of what they are reading. And diversity will, if you put diversity in front of them, they will choose what to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now that you say that, you speak so many languages, right? And you are a Mumbaiker, so I must ask you the importance of reading to kids in multiple languages.
You know, I wish, see, my mother, I got a lot of oral stories. My grandmother used to make us cry every night, telling us really heart-wrenching stories of Sant Jnaneshwar, which even today I can cry if I say them to my grandson. Get bilingual books and expose your child to as many languages as possible. It's a real advantage for the future.
Right. And what do you think of audiobooks?
Audiobooks are marvelous. We are a country of oral storytellers, right? See, all these are complementary things. Physical books, digital books, audio books, your grandmother's stories falling on your ear, your mother's stories falling on your ear. These are all complementary things that create an ecosystem to sustain a reading life, right? So all of them are complementary and you need all of them.
Last but not the least, I need you to share the book that you have in your hand, and if you could read out a front of the first 2 pages.
Should I? What fun. Yes. It's for tiny toddlers. It's for the tiny toddler in all of us, okay? So here's this little boy, about the age of my grandson, who says, "Mama, look at the moon shining bright in the sky. I want to go to the moon. How I wish I could fly. Why does the moon grow big and then get so small? And on some nights, why is there no moon at all? Why can't I become tall and then suddenly, why can't I become small and then suddenly tall? I don't understand this moon at all." And then the mother goes on to say, "Mama laughs and hugs me tight. Sleep now, I'll tell you why another night." But then I begin to think and think, and I cannot sleep, not one little wink. And here's where the story takes off. Maybe a hungry little sky monster couldn't find anything to eat, and the full moon, so shiny and so near, looked like a yummy treat. So it is a little fable to engage children in the waxing and waning of the moon, which is such a universal question little children ask.
Right.
And then once there's a fable, then you can lead them into the science of it as well. So that was my hope.
Which is incredible. Thank you so much, Rohini. Thank you so much for your time. And it's an absolute pleasure chatting with you. And I'm sure everybody.
I wish I could see your viewers, but to all your viewers, I would say thank you and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rohini.